West Bromwich Albion has spent most of its 146-year existence in the top flight of English football. The club has even won the top flight title once, but that was over 100 years ago. Following the club's relegation from the Premier League in 2021 under Big Sam, the Baggies haven't exactly set the world alight and have slipped down the Midlands pecking order. In today's video, we will try and take them back to the Premier League and see if we can replicate that title win from 1920. Diving into the squad for Season 1, we do have several good players at our disposal, the best of which is Turkish midfielder 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪. Other key players for us this season will be Jed Wallace, lone winger 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 and Daryl Dike. But we will be without him for a few months as he currently has an Achilles injury. I need a tactic for this video and we will be rocking GYR's Wolverine tactic, which is a 4-2-4 and looks like this in game. We will be pinning 4 players into their position for this season as we look to fire our way out of the championship. There are 3 competitions on our schedule this season, but the board are expecting a playoff finish as a minimum. And I think that's what we are going to have to settle for, as the 3 teams relegated from the Premier League last season are absolutely stacked. Our start to the championship season was rough to say the least, only picking up 4 points from our first 4 games. We did manage to find our feet moving through the remainder of 2023, picking up impressive results against the like of Ipswich and Sunderland. I have to give a shout out to 2 of my key players. First of all is Jed Wallace, who was crazy good this season, providing a return of 21 goals and 21 assists in all competitions from the right wing spot. Also, following his return from injury, US men's national team striker Daryl Dike hit the ground running, bagging an impressive 26 goals in all competitions this season. Moving into 2024, we had a little bit of a wobble, but the championship is a highly competitive league where anyone can beat anyone on their day. However, we were unable to finish inside the top 2, which meant that we had the lottery of the playoffs, and we ended up facing one of last season's relegated teams from the Premier League, Leicester City. We were on the road for the first leg and Leicester opened the scoring after just 6 minutes with a nice corner kick routine. Minutes later, Jason Molumby pulled us level, capitalising on a poor touch, but the Foxes regained the lead on the half-hour mark after a horrendous goalkeeping mistake from us. And then things took a bit of a turn as we were reduced to 10 men as Jed Wallace received his marching orders for nothing. Things then went from bad to worse on the stroke of halftime as we were handed a golden opportunity to get back into the game, but 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 saw his penalty saved by the Leicester keeper. We started to tire with the man disadvantage and Leicester added a third through Kelechi Iheanacho, giving us a lot to do back at the Hawthorns. We knew the size of the task ahead and rattled in 3 goals inside the first half, with Iheanacho adding the one for Leicester to make the tie level on aggregate. Then in the second half, Daryl Dike scored his second of the game to put us into the lead for the first time in the tie, only to see Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall pull Leicester City level in the 90th minute. That goal sent the game into extra time, but that couldn't divide the 2 sides, so the game had to be decided by penalties. Both sides missed their first penalties but then settled into their stride until Eric Peters saw his penalty saved by the Leicester keeper, giving Eunice the chance to send Leicester to Wembley, and he did just that. And for those of you who are interested, Leicester faced Sunderland in the playoff final, and it was the Black Cats that returned to the Premier League on this occasion. So we finished in 4th but ultimately fell in the playoffs to one of the teams that was relegated from the Premier League last season, which I don't think is too bad, but now I get the chance to put my own stamp on this West Brom team. And to do so, we've got just under £6 million to attract players to the club, but there are several players who will be getting released at the end of the season. Over the summer, we got to work immediately by releasing a whopping 18 players from the club, which freed up a lot of funds for wages. We also topped up the fund a little bit more with the sale of 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 Higgins to Sheffield United for £400k. On the incoming side of things, we secured 8 free transfers and 6 season-long loans to transform this team. Key free transfers will be Willian arriving from Fulham after his contract had ended, Timothy Fosu-Mensah from Bayern Leverkusen, and former Real Madrid man Luka Jovic. Loan-wise, we pulled in Jorel Hato from Ajax, Rua Walters from Arsenal, Ashley Phillips from Spurs, and Jesus Vasquez from Valencia. So this team looks very different from last season, and our defence is entirely made up of loan signings, which could be a problem for future Steve. I guess we'll find out. Competition-wise, we are in the same three as last season, but the priority has to be promotion to the Premier League, and clearing house this summer makes me feel more confident of getting the job done. But with Crystal Palace, Luton and Sheffield United getting relegated, we're going to have our work cut out for us. Before we get into the season review, we had several transfers that occurred either before the summer window slammed shut or in January. Let's start with the outgoings, as we said goodbye to Grady 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪, who left for Luton for £5.25 million, and Jason Molumby left for Saudi Arabia for £10 million. That allowed us to complete a swift flurry of signings before the window closed, as we pulled in Imran Louza from Watford for £10.75 million and Lewis O'Brien from Nottingham Forest. And then in January, we added a new keeper in Uruguay international 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 𝙯 on a free transfer. We started the season like a house on fire, ripping through teams left and right, even putting 7 goals past Millwall at the Hawthorns. We were progressing well throughout the season and even went on a nice FA Cup run, dispatching Manchester City, Southampton and Lincoln City on the way to a quarter-final tie with Coventry, which we sadly lost on penalties. But back in the Championship, we were progressing well and needed to defeat Plymouth Argyle on the final day of the season to secure automatic promotion. And the boys came out flying to secure a 4-2 win on the road to see us finish second in the league behind Middlesbrough and return to the Premier League for the 2025-26 season. I have to give yet another shout out to Jed Wallace, as this guy was absolutely phenomenal yet again. This season he provided 27 goals and 17 assists in all competitions, which was good enough to scoop him the Championship Golden Boot. Returning to the Premier League means one thing: an influx of cash, and we have now just shy of £40 million in our transfer budget, and our wage budget has increased by over £400,000 a week. I knew this was going to be a big step up, and we managed to pull in a total of 10 new faces to make us Premier League ready. We got business done early, picking up Christian Eriksen from Manchester United for £1.9 million, Stefan Mitrovic from Manchester City for £7.5 million, and Rodrigo Villagra from Spurs for £6.5 million. We then added a new keeper in the face of Alban Lafont from Nantes for £8.25 million and Amadou Dante from Sturm Graz for £6.5 million. Next, we raided the free transfer market with key additions, bringing in Wout Weghorst from Burnley and Facundo Pellistri from Manchester United. And for the season, we also extended the loans of Jarrell Hato, Ashley Phillips and Ruel Walters for a second season. So this is how the team looked on our return to the Premier League, with Eriksen being the standout player in midfield. Our board are expecting us to avoid relegation from the Premier League this season, and looking at the pre-season odds, we've equipped ourselves the best out of the 3 promoted sides, but are still expected to suffer relegation. And yes, that is Birmingham in the Premier League as well, and yes, Wayne Rooney is still in charge. I guess FM backs Rooney more than real life. We were handed the toughest start to life back in the Premier League, as our opening fixtures saw us take on Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United and Manchester City back to back, but we did manage to get impressive wins in the 2 home games. We did grow into the season following that tough start and even won 7 of our 10 games throughout November and December before the transfer window opened again. Our board provided us with a little bit of a cash injection, and we added 7 new faces in this window. Jonas Svensson came in to give us another option in the right back spot for £2.3 million. Frendrup and Zekiel arrived from Genoa and Feyenoord respectively to bolster our options in midfield. And at the back, we signed new-gen Steven Peters from Fulham for £5 million and Julian Palacio from Colombia on a free transfer. After the window closed, the season went as you would expect, losing to the teams that we should lose to, but picking up key wins at the Hawthorns, as our home form propelled us to a 6th place finish in the Premier League, which will actually see us play Europa Conference League football next season. It was a crazy season in the Premier League, as Chelsea and Manchester United finished 9th and 10th respectively, and Newcastle even flirted with relegation. This season, 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 really stepped up, adding 19 Premier League goals along with Christian Eriksen, who provided 13 assists this season. In other competitions, we had mediocre runs in both the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, But survival in the Premier League was the key thing for us this season, and we went above and beyond with that. We have just shy of £50 million to spend on this team over the summer as we take them into a continental competition. This summer was huge for the club as we had a massive influx of cash just through selling one player. 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 left the club after 5 years of service to join 𝘼𝙗𝙪 for a whopping £46.5 million. This allowed us to get active in the transfer market, spending just under £70 million on a total of 9 players. The most expensive of which was striker 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪, who joined from Spurs for £30 million, but he's English and has high potential, so we know that costs in Football Manager. We did, however, make some more shrewd signings in the window as well, as we added Gonzalo Morales from Boca Juniors for £15 million, Ilario Monterrezi from Frosinone from £4 million, Brian Aguiar from Lanús for £3.5 million, Boulaye Dia from Salernitana for £1.8 million, and Taylor Harwood-Bellis from Manchester City on a free transfer. So with all these additions, this is how we look going into the season, and I'm happy with how this team is looking, as it's much more balanced than in previous seasons. Things took a turn after the end of the season, and England got the extra coefficient spots, so we will actually be playing in the Europa League this season instead of the Conference League. In the Prem, the board are expecting a mid-table finish, but they are actively trying to sell the club. However, the media think that we will narrowly avoid relegation, so let's try and prove them wrong. I actually thought we turned a bit of a corner last season, but this year we came crashing back down to earth with a massive thud. We started the season awfully, only getting 3 points from our first 6 games before finally getting back-to-back wins against Arsenal and Southampton at the Hawthorns. This season really confused me, as we suffer some strange defeats and then pick up 3 points against teams like Manchester City. And I think the main reason for our progress in the Premier League suffering was the fact that we actually advanced in a couple of cup competitions this year. In the FA Cup, we progressed through the first few rounds, dispatching Tottenham, Barnsley and Manchester United before facing Reading in the quarter-finals. The Championship side took the lead in the first half, but Boulaye Dia took the game by storm in the final few minutes, pulling us level by capitalising on a defensive mistake before lashing his second of the game deep into injury time to send us into the semis. The game would take place at Wembley and we would face Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. This proved to be a step too far, as Arsenal fired home 3 goals without a response to see our FA Cup journey come to an end. However, we were much more successful in Europe. We entered the Europa League at the league phase, where we racked up an impressive 6 wins from our 8 games to see us finish on 19 points and come second in the table. In the round of 16, we faced Belgian side Genk, and despite going a goal behind, we managed to score twice on the road and take a slender lead back to England. At the Hawthorns, goals were flying in left, right and centre, but we did manage to advance with a 5-3 aggregate win, with late summer signing Ernest Nuamah scoring 2 of the goals. Next up was Heerenveen in the quarterfinals, and this time we were at home first, where we scored 3 goals without reply to comfortably put us in the driving seat in the tie. On the road, Heerenveen scored the only goal of the game, but our performance at home saw us progress with a 3-1 aggregate win. This set up a semi-final tie with Juventus, and we'd entertain them at home first. 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 continued his goal-scoring run in the competition by opening the scoring before Dusan Vlahovic pulled the old lady level. Stefan Mitrovic added a second for us just before half-time, and Jed Wallace made it 3-1 in the second half. But Englishman Samuel Illing scored a goal in injury time to give Juve a lifeline. However, in Turin, we scored 2 goals inside the first 20 minutes to make it 5-2 on aggregate, and it looked like we'd secured our path to the final, but Juve came roaring back with goals through Chiesa and Cambiasso, but we managed to hold on to that 5-4 lead. The final was held in Belgrade, and we'd faced Monaco, who struck first through Florian Balogun. However, the boys showed fantastic character by battling back through goals from Dia and a brace from Luka Jovic to take a 3-1 lead into half-time. Balogun added his second in the second half, but again the boys wouldn't be deterred as Mitrovic restored the 2-goal lead before Luka Jovic capped a fantastic performance by completing his hat-trick in injury time to see us win the game 5-2 and be crowned Europa League champions. But as I said earlier, this success in cup competitions caused our league form to suffer, and we actually finished down in 10th in the Premier League table, but we will be competing in the UEFA Champions League next season. This year had a bit of everything, but who'd have thought that we'd be winning the Europa League inside 4 seasons? We're going to have one final roll of the dice to see what we can do in the Champions League, and we have another £53 million to throw at this team. As you would expect going into the final season, we tried to sign as many players as humanly possible, but we did top our kitty up by selling 3 players for £64 million. A bulk of this was on Taylor Hardwood-Bellis joining 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙈 for a huge £45 million. Not bad for a player we signed on a free transfer last season. He was followed to Saudi Arabia by Lewis O'Brien, who departed for 𝘼𝙗𝙗 for £12.5 million. And finally, Julian Palacio joined Norwich for £5.75 million. Those additional funds allowed us to spend £83 million on 10 new players this summer. Starting at the back, we added Cameron Carter-Vickers from Celtic for £15.75 million and Nuan Perez from Napoli for another £15 million. In the midfield, we spent £20 million on Brazilian winger 𝘼𝙗𝙗𝙪 from Shakhtar, who offers us the versatility of being able to play on both wings. And this wouldn't be a Hood Gaming rebuild without cracking out the Wonderkid finder to pick up some new-gen talent. Firstly, we secured Argentina youth striker Francis Bianchessi from River Plate, who spent last season on loan at Ipswich Town of all places. He cost us just £9 million. We then also signed 19-year-old Mexican international Juan Carlos Hernandez from Club America for £9.25 million. We also picked up 2 key signings on free transfers, as Antonio Blanco arrives from Alaves alongside Nathan Ake, who still looks superb despite being 32 years of age. So this is how the team looks going into the first game of the season, and I think that the attack is a real handful for any team in this league, and young Hernandez comes in to start for the team aged just 19 years old. We've got lots on our plate this season as we enter the Champions League for the first time and add the UEFA Super Cup, where we will take on Real Madrid. However, we've already won our first piece of silverware this season by winning the European/South American Club Challenge, where we dispatched Brazilian side Cruzeiro in Sevilla. Before we get into the results of season number 5, I want you guys to let me know if you are still watching this West Brom rebuild right now by commenting boing boing for the Baggies down in that comment section. Let's get into the results for season 5. We opened the season with the UEFA Super Cup, where we would take on last season's Champions League winners Real Madrid, which showed the golfing class as Madrid ran out 2-0 winners. Our start to the Premier League campaign was decent, picking up surprising wins against the likes of both Manchester clubs. Things picked up in November and December, and then we added Italian new-gen striker Massimo Canini from Atalanta for £20 million. But he looks like a real stud and bagged 16 goals in 23 appearances for us. In the new year, we were pretty difficult to beat, but sadly had way too many draws, drawing 9 times out of 15 games from February onwards. Those draws cost us dearly as we finished the season in 11th in the Premier League table, but we would still be playing continental football next season. This was down to our success in the EFL Cup, as we managed to progress through the early rounds, even knocking off Liverpool in the 4th round. We'd faced Spurs in the quarterfinals, and despite going a goal down, we were able to win the game thanks to a brace from 𝘼𝙗𝙗𝙪. That result set up a 2-legged semi-final against Leeds United, where we got off to a flyer, scoring in the first minute of the first leg at the Hawthorns, but things finished all square, leaving us a job to do on the road. However, this game was after we signed Canini, as he took the game by the scruff of the neck, bagging an impressive brace that sent us through to the final to take on Arsenal at Wembley. The last time we faced the Gunners at Wembley, we lost. Not this time. Arsenal did take the lead through Ben White nodding home from a corner, but we then took over the game, running out eventual 4-2 winners and winning the EFL Cup for the 2nd time in the club's history. However, Arsenal did get their own back on us by dumping us out of the FA Cup in the 4th round. And finally this season we have the Champions League to discuss. We entered in the league phase, of course, where we actually went unbeaten, picking up massive wins against the likes of PSG, Ajax and Dortmund. It will come as no surprise that those results saw us finish top of the league phase table, sitting 3 points clear of Real Madrid in 2nd. This is proper hang it in the Louvre stuff.
the Louvre.
That meant that we automatically qualified for the round of 16, where we come up against Atletico Madrid. We were on the road in the first leg and to my surprise dominated them in the Metropolitano with an own goal from 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪, followed by goals from Ake and Canini before Sotil added a consolation goal for Atleti. Back at the Hawthorns, we scored another early to extend our aggregate lead to 4-1, which luckily for us was enough to withstand the Atletico charge as they scored 2 goals in response, but we still progressed with a 4-3 win on aggregate. This sets up a quarter-final appearance against PSG, a side that we did defeat in the league phase. This time we were at home first and it was a barnstormer, with 3 Baggies getting on the score sheet, whilst 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 𝙈𝙚 ran the show for PSG, bagging a brace of his own to give us a slender 3-2 lead to take to Paris. In the second leg, PSG started to clap back, but we were able to hold on with goals from Morales and 𝘼𝙗𝙗 to see the game end 3-2 and go into extra time. Sadly for us, this is where the depth of the PSG squad shone through as Fabio Vieira and Nuno Mendes both scored in extra time to see PSG win the tie 7-5 on aggregate. So this season had a little bit of everything, and although we weren't right at the top of the league, I'm sure you Baggies fans will be happy with this one. And if you want to carry on this save, you can do. The save files are live over on my Patreon right now. And if you do like the rebuild content, check out this playlist popping up right now. It's all the rebuilds we've done in FM24.